Yep. Welcome, viewers. We are today speaking to Transform Zimbabwe President, President Jacob Ngarivhume. He's going to tell us a lot more about the recently held party's elective Congress, in setting the record straight on the MDC T Alliance, and a whole lot more issues regarding the party and its preparedness in these forthcoming elections. Welcome, President Ngarivhume.
Sure, thank you very much.
You recently held your elective Congress where you were elected as the president. Briefly walk us through the history of your party.
Sure, thank you very much. It's my honor to have you here, and welcome, viewers. Thank you very much. Firstly, I would want to say, indeed, this was our inaugural Congress as a political party. Since the formation of Transform Zimbabwe, from a joint convention hosted by Prayer Network Zimbabwe and the Voice for Democracy, we were still to hold our inaugural Congress, and I'm glad that we managed to do that this weekend, this last weekend, and we elected Transform Zimbabwe executive leaders, and also provincial leaders were elected at the Congress. So we now have a substantive leadership to guide the political party Transform Zimbabwe for the next 5 years. I'm very glad that, holding that Congress for us not only legitimizes us as leaders of Transform Zimbabwe, but it also puts Transform Zimbabwe in the political fold very strongly in our country. I mean, Zimbabwe has over 100 political parties, but if you were to count and look on the 100 plus political parties to say who have institutions that hold processes like congresses and so on, I think that's what makes the difference between the many political parties that you have, and the very serious ones are the ones which demonstrate organizational ability and capability, which is what we have managed to do as Transform Zimbabwe. And I'm very glad that it's a very crucial step that we have achieved as a political party.
Maybe tell us a bit more about the core values and principles of your party.
Transform Zimbabwe stands on key principles and values that, in fact, led to the establishment of the political party. We're a values-based political party, and I mean values of integrity, accountability, values of trust and honesty. It's very critical. I mean, this is the foundation on which we are established. And as a political party, we also are established from a Christian background. That identity, we are very proud of it. We don't regret to the fact that most of us are coming from a Christian background, and the party was established from such. And we are very proud of the values we take from our Christian background. And of course, remember I said it was a convention held and co-hosted by the Voice for Democracy and Prayer Network Zimbabwe. So we are also coming in from a strong democratic civil movement, which was championing, key pillars of democracy and justice. So the Voice for Democracy has always been fighting for justice and democracy. And we believe that there can't be justice unless there's democracy, and there can't be democracy unless also there's justice. So we combine all those value systems to build Transform Zimbabwe, the political party.
The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has just announced that there are plus or minus 112 political parties in Zimbabwe who have registered interest to contest the forthcoming elections. Do you, as a party, have membership? Do you have structures?
Mm-hmm. That's one of the points I've alluded to earlier on, to say, okay, if there are over 112 political parties in this country, that's fair and fine. It's everyone's democratic right to form a political party. But the question is, how many of the 112 have demonstrable institutions and demonstrable organizational capacity and capability, which is very critical in forming and establishing a political party? I mean, Mr. X can move. I mean, you can move out of this room and say, I have established a political party, and you can take a few of our supporters who are outside there, and then you can be inaugurated president of such. But the question is, do we have capacity to then follow through that decision? As for Transform Zimbabwe, we have structures in the over 60 districts in our country. These are the people who gathered at our Congress over the weekend. There were over 2,500 delegates from across the country, from the 60 districts in the country. Binga was represented, Plumtree was represented, Mudzi was represented, everywhere. So I think this is what makes us a key political player in this country. Our ability to galvanize our structures for a Congress like we've done, and our ability to hold elections across the elections with representatives from across the country. And I think, and the meetings also we've been holding as Transform Zimbabwe, consistently we've been on the ground meeting structures, galvanizing them for the election, for the Congress, of course. And I think that shows that we are a key component into what is happening. And of course, the fact that we are also a member of the MDC Alliance also demonstrates that Transform Zimbabwe is a force to reckon with in the politics of this country.
Thank you very much. Please, could you tell our viewers more about the election manifesto that you launched at your recently held Elective Congress, Ignite?
Yes. Ignite is our policy document as a political party. It came about after careful consideration and careful consultation and extensive consultation with the business community, with ordinary citizens, and also with experts. It was very important for us to say, how do we resuscitate the economy of our nation? I mean, Ignite basically runs through some of the key components of what needs to be done in Zimbabwe to move our nation forward. I mean, we talk of industrialization, for instance, to say we need to resuscitate our industries, our manufacturing industries. We need production in this country. There is no economy that can grow without production. But the question is, how do you ensure that an economy which is virtually dying, which is not working, contrary to what Mnangagwa can say, let's make Zimbabwe work again. But we see that things are dying. For an economy to grow, there must be production. But how do you make sure that there's production in our industries? How do you industrialize? Some of the key components to our policy is to say, okay, for us to grow an economy, you need it to produce. How do you make it produce? You need investment. Investment is a key component in growing any economy. But how do you attract that investment? And the investment needs to be domestic investment and foreign direct investment. But how do you attract domestic and foreign direct investment? You need to make sure that you have the right environment. An environment is very critical for attracting investment. There is no investor whatsoever who can come and invest in an environment that is not consistent. For instance, we need to be consistent in policy. When we have a policy outline, we need to be consistent on that. We don't want to change and shift goalposts. We need to make sure also we respect the rule of law and property rights, because those are key components and tenets to maintaining an environment that can enable growth and production. And also, not only consistency and not only I've talked of consistency in policy, and I've also talked of I've talked of consistency, and I've also talked about an environment that respects the rule of law. But we also need to make sure that investors, when they come, the investment is there's an assurance in terms of their investment as they use it. And an environment that does not attract any of that is doomed. We also have said, okay, fine, we need to deal with the issues of inflation. How do you curb inflation? For us to curb inflation, we need to understand what brings about inflation. What has been overspending. Government overspending has been a key driver of overspending in this country. How do you make sure that you deal with government overspending? You look at the various departments of government that have been overspending, and then you want to look at how you address that. Number one, but our budget deficit is, our revenue has mostly gone towards the payment of the servicing of our civil service. We need an audit to look at who is who in our civil service. And then we cut back on the things that are not necessary and make sure that the key drivers of our economy, we are the ones that we support and fund. But so far, there's been ghost workers, over 200,000 ghost workers. And of course, in the recent budget, they announced that they were shelving only 2,000 or if not 4,000. What is that compared to 200,000? So all those are things that we would straight away look into as soon as we get an opportunity to lead the people of Zimbabwe. So our policy document is very clear in terms of how we resuscitate our economy. And the full document is available for viewers to see. Our department, which is responsible for policy, is publishing that to the nation and on our websites of how we intend to deal with a whole range of issues that have affected our economy and that has made Zimbabwe nosedive to where it is now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngarivhume, for that clarity. I would also want you to tell our viewers more about the MDC T Alliance. You realize that there are like a lot of alliances in Zimbabwe currently, the Code, the Rainbow Coalition. Just shed more light on why Transform Zimbabwe joined the MDC T Alliance and maybe some of the notable strengths that you note in terms of joining this alliance in the forthcoming elections.
Sure. Firstly, of course, the point of correction is the MDC Alliance, not the MDC T Alliance. So
Noted.
The MDC T is a member of
Noted.
the
Noted.
MDC Alliance. Thank you. Yes, Transform Zimbabwe is a member of the MDC Alliance, and that decision was reached to after the national executive of Transform Zimbabwe met and decided that we be part of the MDC Alliance. And what I would want to say in terms of the strength of the MDC Alliance, which is what we as Transform Zimbabwe also put on the table when I had the initial meeting to discuss the idea of the alliance with the late President Morgan Tsvangirai, I said to him, you know what, Mr. President, the idea of an alliance to us as Transform Zimbabwe is not only about the sum total of political parties and people that you are able to bring onto the table, but it is also about the sum total of values we can, as a combined force, put on the table. It is those values that we can then use to attract the people of Zimbabwe and garner the numbers that we need. And not only to garner the numbers to win an election, but to take over, to take power after winning that election is another whole different ballgame, demonstrated by the preemptive coup of 2008, which prevented the late President Tsvangirai from taking over after winning an election. So we need to make sure that our alliance should have demonstrable institutions and demonstrable strategies to enable us to take power after the election. So as Transform Zimbabwe, we feel that, the alliance is very critical. I mean, it gives the best way forward for the people of Zimbabwe to be a member of the alliance and to be working together to make sure that the vote is not split. This is what we are looking at. Yes, we have also other alliances. It was best for us all to come together, but it's not that easy to bring together 112 different political parties into one alliance. There are many issues that come with that, and of course we understand that it's not an easy process. But having said that, the people of Zimbabwe, when they go for the next elections, they need to look at who is in the best position to win victory for them at the next election. And I believe the work we are doing in the MDC Alliance, demonstrated by the crowds we are attracting and demonstrated also by the documents we as a combined force are putting out there to the electorate, I think we're in the best position to win the next elections.
Following your elective congress, you've indicated that the grassroots supported, there were issues raised regards how some of the alliance partners are violating the alliance agreement. Please, could you shed more light on that?
Yeah, I think it's one of the resolutions from our Congress which attracted a lot of attention. with some saying, you should not have said that, and some saying it's okay. But I think in terms of leaders and demonstrating leadership, it's very important to take people's grievances, and they were packaged in resolutions of our Congress. And as the leader of Transform Zimbabwe, I have an obligation to take those resolutions to the people of Zimbabwe. This was our first elective Congress, and it was also the first opportunity for the members of Transform Zimbabwe to air their views on how they want the alliance to be shaped and move on. The majority of those concerns that were raised by our membership, we actually took them to the alliance directly. But those that were synthesized and were read to the press and to the people, it's very important. There were concerns raised from our members, with some alliance partners fielding candidates in constituencies allocated to Transform Zimbabwe. I think it was very, very important. In fact, if anything, I thank God, and I would want to thank the leadership of Transform Zimbabwe that we managed to avert a split of the party. Some provinces from our party were completely anti-alliance. They were saying, no, we don't want the alliance because alliance partners are not faithful and so on. But we managed to sit them down, and we managed to reason out together and say, okay, fine, how best can we avoid us working separately? And then we eventually agreed with, no, we can take these grievances to the alliance, and we can read them through as resolutions of our Congress. And then we agreed to work together and await the response of the alliance. It is very important. It is very important because ultimately we managed to keep the Transform Zimbabwe family together, because there are those, especially who were coming from the affected provinces, they were saying, where is the working together then? So I think it is very important for the people of Zimbabwe to understand that, as Transform Zimbabwe, we are mandated to carry out the will of the people of Zimbabwe and membership of Transform Zimbabwe. This is precisely what we did. This is precisely what we did. We read through those resolutions because they came from our membership. And for your own information, it would be naive for a whole 2,500 leaders of Transform Zimbabwe to gather and fail to deliberate exclusively and exhaustively on the issue of the alliance. And for those issues not to come out, if they come out, let's talk about them. This is the whole essence of democracy. Let's talk about those issues and let's iron them out. And once they are ironed out, and I think our membership has got no problem, they'll be very glad to continue working in the alliance, which is the position we came out with at the Congress. So I'm very glad that looking back at it and say, okay, fine, I have managed to avoid a split of the political party that I'm leading, because we said we would be transparent as far as this process is concerned, and this is precisely what we did.
Maybe shed more light on the issue of the reports purporting that you gave the alliance a certain time frame, 7 days to be particular, to respond to your concerns. Could you shed more light on that?
Yeah, I saw that on the news and everywhere, that I'm giving ultimatums and what have you. I would not want to dwell into that, because I think, honestly, dwelling into that would reduce this very important interview from focusing on key issues. It's not true. Absolutely, it's not true. We have not given anybody any ultimatums. But what we have simply done is we have sent through the concerns and the grievances of membership of Transform Zimbabwe to the alliance, and I think that's the process that we have done. Of course, the Congress has then mandated the National Executive of Transform Zimbabwe to make a decision following the response that we're going to get from the alliance, and I think that is in order. This is how organizations work. There's nothing amiss in that, and of course, when the time comes, we'll make a review and see how much progress we've made as we move forward. But I'm very glad that we came up with a bold statement as a political party. To me, this is the whole essence of leadership. You need to be very firm and stand strong and firm on the decisions and resolutions of the people. This is what I simply did. I read through resolutions that the people of Transform Zimbabwe and the people of Zimbabwe through Transform Zimbabwe had put together, and this is what we precisely did. We've not given anybody any ultimatum. We work as brothers and sisters in the alliance. We've got very cordial working relationships with everyone in the alliance, the alliance president, Professor Nuve, everyone. We work very well together, and this is how we proceed Of course, I mean, there are a lot of spin-offs from every story. I mean, this is how you work as journalists, but we are not necessarily concerned about the misinformation that sometimes come out of statements.
Maybe shed more light. Could you, Mr. Ngarivhume, please could you talk more about the number of seats that your party has been allocated to contest in the forthcoming elections? Are you happy with that number? Is it what you agreed in terms of the alliance?
Transform Zimbabwe is contesting in 19 constituencies in the alliance. And I think ordinarily as a political party, and more so given the fact that we had our structures coming together, converging for the first time since the formation of the party, I think there were issues. Of course, I mean, when we negotiated, we came up with 19 constituencies, and every time there are negotiations, you must understand that, you know, it's not everyone who becomes happy of the outcome of any negotiation process, because when you negotiate, at the end you make compromises. You know, that is that must be understood. It is one of the things I also explained to the membership of Transform Zimbabwe, to say, when you negotiate, you make compromises. And as a political party, for the sake of Zimbabwe and for the sake of moving the democratic fight forward and making sure that we unseat ZANU-PF, we accepted those compromises. But then there were recommendations, of course, you know, which came from Congress to say there could be areas that we may need to be looked into as negotiations are concluded. And I think all that again is in order, because this is how an organization can function, and this is what Transform Zimbabwe is saying. But as far as we are concerned, we have 19 constituencies, and those are the constituencies that Transform Zimbabwe under the alliance would field candidates. But if there are other ideas that came through, those ideas that they came through from our membership, and they are being discussed at the appropriate levels.
What are some of the urgent issues, to just shift away from the Congress now? What are some of the urgent issues that you think need redress in the country's electoral environment if Zimbabwe is going to have credible, free and fair elections as purported by the President Emmerson Mnangagwa's administration?
Yes. I mean, firstly, Zimbabwe needs to accept the position that it is in. The fact that there was a coup last year, and that coup was popular but illegal. It's one of the resolutions also from our Congress. We agreed that, you know, the coup was popular, yes, because suddenly for the first time in 37 years, we had to wake up without Mugabe as the president. That's the only positive thing out of the coup. But other than that, the coup is illegal. And we need to make sure that as a nation, we go back to legality, constitutionalism. And how do we do that? We need a free, fair, credible election. We understand there are still outstanding electoral reforms that we have been demanding as the opposition. Those need redress. Repressive laws are still in place. The requirement for the opposition political parties to notify the police when they want to hold the election, they are still in place. Those repressive laws are still in place. I mean, I've been arrested over 7 times under POSA, Section 24, subsection 4 of POSA. And POSA is still in place. HYPA is still in place. We need those repressive laws redressed. We need those nullified. And also, the Broadcasting Act, we still need other public broadcasters to give Zimbabweans a full view of who is who in our in our political space. We only have ZBC, which has since been escalating, only focusing on ZANU-PF. I was watching television last night. You'd almost think that this is a personal broadcast channel for the president, for Emmerson Mnangagwa. They were showing the death of his brother's cousin. For your own information, at a time we are focusing on elections and we need everybody to be sharing what they are going to do for the people of Zimbabwe, the national broadcaster, supported by taxpayers' money, is busy showing, you know, funerals of the president's cousins. You know, they're showing the president buying tomatoes on the market, the president's wife. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. This is not how a normal democracy functions. And state broadcasters have got no mandate to only show one story, which is what they've been doing since 1980. And nothing has changed. And we need Zimbabwe to focus on that. And there are still other electoral issues. We need to know where the server will be based. The main server of the voters' roll. We need to agree as partners. We still need to agree on where the ballot paper is going to be printed. There are heinous stories of the ballot changing form and shape. And apparently now some of the people they've been fighting in ZANU-PF, they've been fighting a lot, you know it. They've also come on the side of the people, and now they are saying, yes, the ballot paper is compromised. We still have the issue of the diaspora vote. Mnangagwa is saying there won't be any diaspora vote in the current election. That is unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Every Zimbabwean has got a right to vote and participate in the electoral processes of their country. So those are key issues that we need to focus on and make sure that, we still have the military. We are still calling on the military of Zimbabwe to hold a press conference like they've done every election cycle and assure the people of Zimbabwe that they would salute and serve whoever is elected president. Every year, the military has compromised itself and said, we only support those who have gone to the liberation struggle and we only salute those who are from ZANU-PF. We need a shift, a complete paradigm shift from that narrative. It is also the time that we have the military swearing their allegiance to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, not to an individual political party. And unless there are serious changes in all those areas, and then we don't have a free, fair, and credible environment that can support a free and fair election. So all those are issues that the people of Zimbabwe and we in the opposition are calling for, to say, let's address those things so that we are able to hold a free, fair, and credible election. But unfortunately to President Mnangagwa, I think he thinks that a free, fair, and fair election is only by word of mouth, without any serious follow-through on action on the ground. He has been going all over with a very beautiful scarf. That's very nice. But it's not only about shouting and saying those things. It's about creating the right environment on the ground. I would be very glad to see on our national broadcaster a debate of the presidential candidates and the different political parties getting as good space as ZANU-PF is getting. We need a change. We need a change. Unless there is demonstrable willingness to do that, then nothing has changed on the ground. Those are the issues that we feel need to be addressed.
Maybe going forward, President Ngarivhume, give Zimbabweans, prospective voters, a parting shot. Why should they vote for the MDC Alliance? Why should they vote for the MDC Alliance, its president, the members of parliament, councillors?
This election is a defining moment. We have a junta which is running the country now after a military coup in November 2017. And the people of Zimbabwe must not allow the junta to be entrenched in the political system by a rigged victory or otherwise in this election. If we don't stop the military this election cycle, then as a nation we are doomed. This is our last chance and last opportunity to make sure that we get this nation on the right track. And how do we do that? We got to look at the people that we have and at the political parties and the political systems that we have. And looking around you as the people of Zimbabwe, the best bet and the best chance and promise for you is coming from the MDC Alliance. And I'm glad that Transform Zimbabwe, within that alliance, we are bringing in a new generation of leaders that fear God. We are bringing in the lacking ingredient in the political system of this country, which has been leadership. Despite the blessing demonstrated by the nation of Zimbabwe, we're a blessed nation with all the mineral resources and everything, but where we have lacked this leadership. the failure of Zimbabwe has been a failure of leadership. Now the alliance has brought together key and various components to the table of people who have not been bogged up and confused and messed up in the things that have been happening in this country. It is a great opportunity to start a new trajectory in our politics. So the alliance, the MDC Alliance, that is the best way forward. Is the best way forward for the people of Zimbabwe. And I'm very glad that Transform Zimbabwe is in there to provide leadership to the people of Zimbabwe. We've got clean hands, people with clean hands, we've got intellectuals, we've got ordinary citizens, we've got citizens who have fought for justice in our team. And those are the people that Zimbabweans must vote for. So the MDC Alliance is our best foot forward. Let's make sure we support them, and let's make sure that we bring change by stopping the military from a continued compromise leadership in our country. This is the best chance we can ever have. If we let them out of the corner they are in now, then we will have a worse off problem like we had with Mugabe. So this is the best chance for the people of Zimbabwe to move Zimbabwe forward.
Thank you.